Well, it's 4 o'clock on the first Friday of September, so it's time for my Facebook Live talk on magic for the month. I'm actually I think I started before it went live, so I'm going to start again. And what I said is it's 4 o'clock on the first Friday in September, so that means it's time for my magic for the month talk. Now, I'm Lucya Starza. I write a Bad Witches blog, and I've written a few pagan portal titles for Moon Books. I'm just going to briefly show you them. There you go. Now, thanks very much for everyone who's watching. I see we've got a few people watching already. That's really great. Hello. Do say hello in the comments. I do see the comments. I don't usually answer questions until the very end, but, you know, do feel free to say hello. Right. The talk should take... Hello, Luna. Hello. Yeah, the talk should take about 25 minutes. I do read from some notes because my memory isn't as good as it used to be. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my Kindle where I've written my notes. Now, last September, that's 2020, I gave a Facebook Live talk for my publisher Moon Books, and that was on magic for the autumn equinox. And it was doing that gave me the idea to this year, every month, do a talk on magic for the month. And now, well, the wheel of the year has turned almost full circle. We're nearly back at the autumn equinox again. I'm not going to repeat the things that I said last year because that video is still available. And it's still got some things that are just as valid this year as they were last year. And if you go to the Moon Books YouTube channel and look for live sessions, you can find it. The full title is Moon Books Live Session Lucya Starza Autumn Equinox Magic for Balance. And it included a guided visualization called the Autumn Garden. I have sometimes been giving guided visualizations as part of my Magic for the Month talks. Last month, oh, Jan, the video keeps stopping. I'm not really sure why that is. Is anyone else having any problems with the video keep stopping? Looks like I've got good reception, good broadband here. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to keep going because it should record, and if it jitters, then you should be able to catch up afterwards. Oh, good. Luna's saying it's fine. Right, well, I will continue. And John's saying it's fine as well. That's good. Well, I will continue. Now, yes, I was saying that I do sometimes give a guided visualization as part of my Magic for the Month talk. Last month, I divided my talk into two, with a talk at the start of the month about the month in general, and then I gave a guided visualization later. But this month, I'm going to say, go and look at the guided visualization that I gave last year because I think it's quite a good one, and it comes from one of my books, and I think it's lovely for the autumn. This September, I'm going to talk more about the start of autumn and some folklore and some magic for the equinox. So, autumn. Now, a lot of my friends have been saying how it feels as though autumn has arrived this year. On the first day of September, I had a jumper on and I put the heater on in the evening and early in the morning. In England, most people say that autumn begins in September, but opinions do vary on exactly when autumn starts. One school of thought is that autumn starts at the autumn equinox, which is the 22nd of September this year. Another idea is that the equinox is actually the middle of autumn, meaning that autumn starts in August. Weather forecasters or meteorologists divide the year into sets of 3 months. And that means that in England, the autumn is the entirety of September, October and November. A third way is to look for actual changes in plants and animals, like falling leaves and birds migrating. And obviously, they vary slightly from year to year. What you do really is your choice. I'm very much in favour of everyone doing what feels right for them, rather than sticking to a system that doesn't quite feel right. However, I do think that getting outdoors and looking at the signs of nature can be really good for helping keep in step with the seasons. Leaves changing colour is obviously one of the most obvious indicators for autumn. And I noticed just yesterday, I was kind of looking out for the first leaves changing colour in my garden. And just yesterday, I noticed that the silver birch tree in my front garden has some golden leaves. Most of them are still quite green, but there's just a few. It's just the start. September is when the leaves tend to turn. And I do really love the gold and red and brown that you get on the trees in the autumn. And I just think it's spring or autumn. I'm never quite sure which I think is the most beautiful for the colours that you see out in nature. Now, on the subject of leaves, I'm going to mention a rather nice little book that's just come out called The Lucky Leaf Handbook. It's by someone called T.E.P. Noodle, and it's mainly about the game of catching leaves as they fall, which is something that I like to do in the autumn when I'm out and about. It's chasing around and catching fallen leaves and then keeping them and looking at them afterwards. I think is something that's quite fun. I enjoy doing it anyway. Now, I actually get a mention in the book, I'm quite proud to say, because I blogged about the folklore that says if you catch a falling leaf, you'll be free from colds all winter. I'm not entirely sure it's true. I think I've probably caught colds some years when I've caught a falling leaf. Another saying is that for every leaf you catch, you'll have a lucky month the following year. And you do actually have to catch them as they're falling, not just pick them up off the ground. You're supposed to keep the leaves nice and safe, and as a witch, I've got a cauldron that I keep my leaves in, and I sometimes use them in spell work too. Now, another thing I like about this little book is that it has pictures that allow you to identify leaves. For example, okay, there's a willow leaf. I don't know if you can see that. Wild cherry, not just the obvious ones, and I think most of us can identify an oak leaf. Yeah, there we go. A catalpa tree and a tulip tree. I've learned that there is a catalpa tree in danger in my local park, in Crystal Palace Park. Some local people are putting together really a campaign to save it. I think that's quite a good thing. But I think often you pick up leaves or you catch leaves, and well, I don't know, I can identify common ones, but there are some that I think I'm not quite sure what that is. So I think having a little book that helps you identify them is really good. One spell you can do with fallen leaves is magic to rid yourself of things that you no longer want in your life. And I'm kind of meaning things like bad habits or giving up sugary snacks. I'm not really meaning people. There's a whole ethical thing there that I'm not going to get into. Anyway, what you do is you get a dead leaf that's fallen from the tree, and you get some environmentally friendly ink or a pencil, and you write on the leaf what it is you want to get rid of. Then you take it out to the garden to let it kind of rot down into the soil and return to the earth, to symbolically get rid of what it is you're trying to get rid of. And of course, it isn't only leaves falling from the trees in the autumn, it's conkers. There's one I picked up earlier. Well, actually, I'll be honest with you, I picked that up last year. My neighbour had a huge conker tree, which has now been felled because it was a bit rotten and branches are falling off it. But I picked that up last year. I do really like finding conkers, the huge brown seeds, the horse chestnut tree. And often when you find them in the ground, they're still in their kind of spiky green cases. And opening them up is, I think, a little bit like opening up a present. You're never quite sure how big and shiny the nut inside's going to be. And these days I tend to put them on my altar when I find them. But as a kid, I'd gather them for games of conkers, where you thread a conker on a piece of string and have battles with other people who've done the same thing. And basically the first conker to fall apart is the loser. Now, I've been told that that isn't actually done much these days. Apparently it's banned in schools, or in some schools. And I can see that lashing out with a big heavy nut on a bit of string could cause an injury. But I've got quite fond memories of that. And later on, I'm going to talk about how you can include some traditional seasonal games in pagan rituals. Sycamore seeds are also spinning their way to seed new trees at the moment. And you might have seen I blogged about that this morning. Sycamore trees are much loved by insects. There's a sycamore seed, a sycamore helicopter. They're much loved by insects, which help pollinate the female flowers. So they are quite good. The seeds develop into winged fruits known as samaras, or well, colloquially helicopters. I've always known them as helicopters. And when I was a child, I used to collect these from the ground and would see how far they would fly by throwing them into the wind. Now, berries. Trees and berries are, of course, usually laden with berries in September, although many started in August. And weather law says that if fruit and berries are exceptionally abundant, a harsh winter lies ahead. I often collect and dry berries for use in spell work. And there's a very traditional protection spell, a loop of rowan berries attached to a cross of rowan sticks, is very with red ribbon or red wool, is a very traditional home protection. That one I didn't make myself. That came from the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic, but you can make your own. Early autumn is also the time for mushrooms. I spotted quite a few last month, but September and up to the first frost is when they're most seen. Fairy rings are natural circles of mushrooms usually found in woods and meadows, and the most common type of mushroom that makes a ring is the Scotch bonnet, and that's sometimes called the fairy ring champignon. Now, they actually form quite often because the mycelium of the fungus uses up the nutrients in the soil, and so the shrooms expand outwards to get more nutrients. And that's kind of the biology behind it. But obviously in folklore, the space within a fairy ring is regarded as dangerous quite often. Stepping inside one might anger the fae or put you in their power. And, you know, fairies traditionally weren't nice and fluffy. You know, they play tricks on you. They whisk you off for 100 years. You know, they might not let you leave the ring. You know, they're not going to play nice. However, in France and Germany, mushroom rings are sometimes known as witches' circles and thought to mark where witches danced. Now, obviously, historically, witches were not thought to be nice people either. So I'm guessing people also thought that if you got inside a witch's ring, the witches might do something nasty to you. You know, modern witches aren't going to. But generally, fairy rings or witches' rings were considered a bit dangerous in folklore. Mushrooms are associated with witches in other ways too, particularly the red and white spotted fly agaric mushroom. You know, they're the ones you often see in pictures in fairy tales. And the psychotropic compounds in the fly agaric was used in traditional recipes for flying ointment. Now, the ointment, which really contained a lot of very dangerous herbs as well as, you know, mushrooms, would have given visions and enabled out-of-body experience. It could possibly also have been quite lethal. It was supposed to enable witches to fly on the ether and perhaps meet up in spirit, if not actually fly physically. As I said, they really were quite dangerous, and like many wild mushrooms, fly agaric is poisonous. If you see one in the woods, take a photograph of it. That's great, but, you know, don't pick it, don't eat it. And really don't pick any wild fungus unless you're absolutely sure it's safe. It's really, really best to, if you're going to go foraging for mushrooms, get someone with you who really, really knows what they're identifying. There can be some very dangerous types. I saw a lovely one in August, and I was really unsure about it. I put a picture up of it up on, I think on Facebook, and I think also on Instagram, and said, "Is this edible?" And people said, "No, no, 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 that's really not edible, that mushroom." So yeah, leave them alone unless you know what you're doing. The flower that I most associate with September is the Michaelmas daisies. I've got a few of them in a little pot here. They bloom really profusely at this time of year, and it'd be perfect to put on a September altar. You might see I've got some behind me on my altar. Sandra Lawrence in The Witch's Garden writes that Michaelmas daisies are the flower of farewell, and this is the time of year when we bid goodbye to summer. They're named after the Archangel Michael, whose feast day is September the 29th, although some pagans don't work with angels because they feel they're too Christian. Michael is honoured by followers of many spiritual paths and magical traditions, and according to a dictionary of angels by Gustav Davidson, he was originally worshipped as a god in his own right by the Chaldeans. In ceremonial magic, Michael can be called upon for protection. He's associated with the element of fire and can be named as a guardian of the southern compass point of when you're casting a circle, along with Raphael in the east, Gabriel in the west, and Uriel in the north. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but you can. Now, September is also when traditionally the grain harvest ends. And this was always a cause for celebration in harvest festivals at pretty much all times. For pagans, it's often honoured either at the full moon, which this month is called the harvest moon, or at the equinox. And I'll be talking more about those later. But first, I'll talk about some of the earlier festivals this month. The Abbots Bromley Horn Dance takes place on a Monday in early September each year. Now, 6 men wearing reindeer antlers, together with a fool, a hobby horse, a bowman, and Maid Marian, dance around a Staffordshire village to the sound of a melodeon. Most English annual customs are actually less than a few hundred years old, but the Abbots Bromley Horn Dance is one of a few that might have its origins in ancient pagan rites. It could have originally been intended to ensure a good hunt. No one really knows for sure. Records show it was first performed at least far as back as August 1226 at the Balthamy Fair. And it's continued annually since at least then. It's probably older. Carbon dating showed that the current antlers that they wear are from the 11th century, but of course they could have replaced older ones. And it's well worth looking up on the internet. It's really interesting. You can see videos of earlier performances. Do visit to watch for a reel if you have a chance. I'm going to have a sip of water. I always say it is water, it's not gin. Now, the ancient Romans honoured Jupiter in a religious festival called the Ludi Romani, which was a time for fun and games. The Roman games originally ran from September the 12th to September the 24th, but they got extended to the 4th and to the 19th. And the first day honoured Julius Caesar. It included chariot races, boxing matches, and things like that. But for a modern version, you could celebrate the Roman games, but do traditional seasonal games like conkers, or catching falling leaves, or racing sycamore helicopters. That's particularly useful if you don't happen to have a chariot racing ring, or fancy some boxing. And afterwards, you could honour the Roman gods with a feast and then pour a libation in their honour. The festival of the Eleusinian Mysteries took place in ancient Greece at this time of year. Now, the actual Eleusinian Mysteries were kept secret by members of that cult. But scholars think that they followed the mythic cycle of the goddesses Demeter and Persephone and the agricultural year, as well as promising initiates security in the afterlife. A major festival of the mysteries happened in mid-September, perhaps to give thanks for the harvest. It's thought that the mysteries involved an initiatory journey symbolizing travel to the underworld, and it is a perfect time for that, as the plants are starting to die back into the soil, where the seeds will wait in the dark or winter before coming to life in the spring. Now on to some Anglo-Saxon customs, and I'm going to read a section by Carol Tierney from the book Everyday Magic, and I should apologise in advance if I mispronounce anything, because I probably will. That's Everyday Magic, that's a community book of things to do throughout the year. Halegmonath. The Anglo-Saxons knew September as Halegmonath, or Holy Month. There were feasts to honour gods associated with agriculture, including Frey and Sif, and to celebrate the harvest's end. Share a meal with friends with local seasonal produce. The rune Jera means harvest or good year. Wear it when you are working hard and want good results. This was also the time of the Volsiblot. The Volsi was a horse penis. It was taken from a stallion during butchering. The mistress of the hearth took it for her god and kept it in a coffin with linen and leeks. On the night of the blood, the penis was passed around for everyone to greet. Now, I think that's really just brilliant. I mean, I can't really imagine anyone nowadays passing around a butchered horse penis, but you know, this is what the ancients did, and I suppose you could pass around some leeks. Now, from something bloody and ancient to something quite the opposite, World Peace Day. The International Day of Peace is observed every year on the 21st of September, and it's dedicated to the absence of war and violence, including temporary ceasefires in battle zones for humanitarian aid. It started in 1982 and is now honoured by nations, political groups, military groups, and people all over the world. Whatever your spiritual path, take time to pray, wish, or work towards there being peace throughout the world, or at least peace for those who wish to leave troubled regions. And now the harvest moon. While modern witches celebrate at full moon, September's was of particular importance to our ancestors who worked the land. The full moon at this time of year can be seen almost throughout the night if the sky is clear, from shortly after sunset to sunrise. This allowed people to continue working outdoors when the sun had gone down to bring in the last of the grain harvest. Afterwards, there was also light for singing and dancing in celebration. The Chinese Moon Festival, sometimes called the Lantern Festival or Mid-Autumn Festival, takes place at the full moon of the 8th Chinese lunar month. And that celebration dates back more than 3,000 years, and it originally honoured the lunar goddesses. These days it's a festival for celebrating and contemplating the moon. The traditional food eaten at this time is the mooncake, and these are often filled with lotus seed paste or bean paste, and some contain salted eggs because the yolks were round like the moon. Another little sip of water. The autumn equinox is, of course, a major pagan festival in the modern wheel of the year. The equinoxes are when the hours of the day and night are of equal length, as I'm sure you know. And in the northern hemisphere, the autumn equinox is on September 22nd this year. In my Moon Books talk last year, which I mentioned earlier, and you can still find on the YouTube channel, I talked about why I don't call this festival Mabon. Some people do call it Mabon, but I don't. Now, I'm not going to repeat that now, but I will be blogging about it at the Moon Books blog later this month. The autumn equinox is traditionally a harvest festival. As I've already mentioned, it can also be a time for us to celebrate our own achievements. And here are some words that I wrote for an autumn equinox ritual a few years back. We stand at the equinox in the midst of autumn. Dark and light are in balance. Day and night are of equal length. Summer lies behind us and winter before us. It is time to take stock of our year's harvest, to celebrate and give thanks for what we have reaped, and to weigh up what we need for harsh times to come. A time of joy and sadness in equal measure, of golden memories sweet as ripe fruit plucked from the orchard, and silver tears bitter as the tang of fallen leaves on frost-rimed earth. A moment to cherish, like the last dance at the end of the party, like the last kiss before saying farewell. Now, do feel free to use those words in your own autumn equinox rites if you want to. Now, if the thought of summer ending made you feel a bit sad about saying farewell to the warmth and sunlight, you aren't alone. Apparently, a lot of people suffer from the blues in mid-September. Obviously, if you're suffering from serious depression, you should talk to your GP. But here's some magic to help you cheer yourself up if you're just feeling a bit down. And I'm going to read from my book, Pagan Portal's Candle Magic, about what I call my Big Hugs Candle Magic. And it's a spell. Here's a little spell to give you a magical warm hug when you're feeling down, either physically or emotionally. What you need is a tea light, a jar or glass candle holder, some paper, sticky tape and some scissors. You could pick a pink candle to help you feel in the pink, but you can use a white tea light if you prefer. Find a clear glass jar or candle holder, giving plenty of room around the tea light. Then measure a wide strip of paper, long enough to wrap around the jar. Cut a chain of paper dolls from the strip. And the way you do that is to fold the paper into pleats, and then with the paper folded, draw half a doll shape on the top of the fold, with half a head and half a body against one edge of the paper, and the hands and feet touching the other edge. You cut the shapes out through all the layers of paper and unfold to reveal your row of dolls holding hands. If you like, you can draw or paint features and clothes on the dolls, or you can leave them plain, and you can use coloured paper too if you like. Tape the dolls around the outside of the jar or the candle holder. Take the tea light out of its little container for a moment and rub the candle between your hands a few times, then put it back into its metal container and into the jar. If you want to scent the candle, just put a couple of drops of your favourite essential oil onto it. Light the candle and visualise yourself feeling hugged and loved. Have the candle burning down somewhere near you, and let it burn down completely if possible, but don't leave it unattended. You can reuse your chain of hugging dolls and jar as often as you like. Pop in a new candle when you feel you want a magical hug. And you could use that on its own or as part of an autumn equinox ritual. So that's the end of my talk on magic for the month of September. And if you're watching this live and have any questions, then by all means do ask them. Oh, right. Yeah. No. Luna's saying that I've never done that with leaves, but love walking. Yes, I love walking crispy ones too. And I wouldn't trust myself picking mushrooms. No, yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay, well, I don't have any more questions there at the moment. That wasn't really questions, that was comments. Now, I'm going to give a little plug for my books. We've got Pagan Portal's Candle Magic. Ah, the Leaf Book again. Yeah, I can show the Leaf Book again. There you go. The Lucky Leaf by TEP Noodle, and it's published by the Boat Whistle Books. But you can find it on Amazon, I think, as well. But it's published by Boat Whistle Books. Right, yeah, giving a plug for my ones. Candle Magic, the community book, Everyday Magic, Scrying, that's a new one coming out, Guided Visualizations, and Poppets and Magical Dolls. Now, this will go up on my YouTube channel, which you can find by searching for Lucya Starza, and you can find my old Magic for the Month talks there. And I will be at the Fairy Festival. I don't know if any of you are going to be going to the Magical Fairy Festival in Sussex next weekend. I think I do still have some tickets. You can buy one-day tickets, and I'm going to be there on the Saturday. I'm going to be giving a guided visualization and running a scrying workshop. Right, okay. Well, thank you for watching this, whether you're watching this live or watching it to come, watching it afterwards rather. It will stay up on Facebook, and it'll also go on my YouTube channel. But thank you very much for coming, and see you next month. Bye.